Hi, Pastor Nathan Decker with your hashtag Better Together devotion for today. This week I'm focusing on Romans chapter 12. In verse 2, Paul writes, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." So, unpacking a lot more of this idea of giving ourselves to a living sacrifice, this verse means so much to me. When I went to college, above the chapel, as you entered into the chapel at Averett College, where I went to college, they had this verse printed out in big, large letters that were beautiful to remind us not to be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Now, this is another place where everybody in the church is going to have an opinion. In fact, I think more and more we are having disagreements about, okay, how much do grace is forgiveness and how much is just permissiveness, or how much accountability is truly accountability and truly holding fast to the love, or how much of it is a rigidness and controlling people. There's a fine line between this. Well, I think the true answer is neither of those directions, but instead is what Paul is writing here, is that we don't conform to the world. The world wants to go into the routes where we begin looking at things left and right, yes, in politics. The world looks at things from perspectives of this or that, ignoring the other options, the supernatural ways. God says, don't be conformed to this world. Instead, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. By allowing Christ, that idea of renewal, by allowing Christ and God's grace into our minds, into our very thought process. We're regenerated, we're renewed, we're rebirthed, we're born again. And we begin understanding that this world is meant to be different than it is. Not only are we not going to be conformed to it, which doesn't necessarily mean just simply a culture war, but instead means that we will be transformed by God's love. We will be transformed in such a way that we will make a direct impact on the world around us. If you want to go back and look at what's acceptable to God, look at how Christ lived his life. Look at how Christ offered forgiveness and mercy to those that were caught in rigid systems, and to those who felt that they were in control, and the powerful, the privileged. He spoke harshly to them, the Pharisees and Sadducees. What is acceptable to God? Paul's going to unpack that more this week. It's humbleness. It's a self-judgment that offers a tremendous amount of grace. It's living life in such a way as to build up rather than to tear down. To look at other human beings and say, I want you to be the best version of you that you can be. By doing so, we don't conform to this world. We are transformed instead by God's grace, by the renewal in our minds of Christ's thoughts. And we become that wonderful way of God, the will of God that Paul writes of here. What is good, what is acceptable, and what is complete or perfect. Today, take time in your prayer to give yourself over to God, especially your thoughts. Pray and simply say, God, I'm going to spend some time with you right now in this quiet moment after this devotion, and I'm going to let whatever thoughts pop into my head come, and I know that you are in them, you are among them, and that you are at work in my life. Give your thoughts over to God. Allow the renewing of your mind so that you won't simply conform to the patterns and habits of this world.